Here.
John? Here. Sarah?
Here.
Nate's excused.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Need a motion for consent agenda.
I make a motion. Second.
A motion or a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Public input. This is time, please, for discussion items not already on the agenda with a time limit of 3 minutes each. Rick? Discussion and possible action in reference to alcohol use at City Park during Sauerkraut Days Softball Tournament.
We put this on here because there was some discussion last meeting about what was gonna happen over there. We asked our new chief of police what his preference was or whatever, so now it's just on here tonight for discussion. You should all probably have a copy of the letter from the Sauerkraut Day Committee. It was also emailed to you. So Aaron is probably here to speak on behalf of the business, if anybody has questions or.
Do you have any questions? How are you gonna police it? To make sure that,
I would like to put up an extra fence to keep everybody within the area. And then, obviously, the people will get ID'd and they'll get wristbands, so we know. That way, if we put up an extra fence to keep them in a certain area, then we can control it that way.
I don't understand where you're gonna put a fence at.
So you know where the white poles are that run down east and west? Put a fence on the inside of those so people can still park there, put a snow fence down those lines, all the way connecting to Horman's old fence, but leave a space where people can get in and out. Block off on both sides of the concession stand so people can't come in from that way. And what I've heard was the baseball fence isn't coming down, so that will keep people from coming in the other way.
Does that mean that if I park, like say across from Hattie Wolf's house, I would have to go up to the baseball entrance?
Yeah, you'd have
To
to go
get
up to
in.
that driveway area where the drinking fountain's at to get in.
I only worry about that because there is a lot of older people that park and just get right out and go sit in that grassy area and watch the games or whatever, and I don't know how that would be
Well, the
for
baseball
them.
fence isn't coming down. Is that correct, Travis? So they're gonna have an issue anyways.
Oh, so they're not gonna be able to see through there?
Yeah, so what she's saying though is like if you park right across from Hattie's,
Right.
they just step like 3 feet past the poles and sit right there.
Yeah, a lot of people sit right there.
Is what she.
Well, I don't know how far down he's talking as far as the white poles.
But if that's the case,
If
then
the
we still have
fence
to leave
lines-
the opening at that end possibly too, if that's what she's saying.
Well, I'm just saying, I don't want elderly people to have to walk all the way
Yeah,
up and
I
then
understand.
carry their chairs all the way down. I mean, that's not convenient for them. And there is a lot of people who do go sit there and watch the games on any given night or whatever, you know.
I don't know any other way to police it, because obviously I've been there when the softball tournament's been going on, so.
Now, I did hear potentially that you guys are doing a different type of can or something to make it a little bit easier to
Yes.
police, is that
Yeah.
correct?
That's
You don't know.
that's what has been talked about. That way we know that what we're serving versus what they're trying to bring in. Obviously, we know that they've been able to bring beer onto the park. The whole purpose of this is following a city ordinance that is in place.
And then here's my next question, in regards to the letter that we just got tonight. Is it plausible for you guys to have somebody down at that entrance, I mean, I'm gonna call it an entrance, but it's basically the division of where the ice cream social's happening, yeah, and the ball games are ending? Is it possible to have somebody there to let them know that, hey, The beer is only on this side, it can't go over into the actual park area of the,
Yeah, that's possible, and that's why I suggested, like you said, like I said, closing in that whole section, and then we don't even have to worry about that. Because if they're outside the fence, yes, we have to police that, but we can't, I'm not a cop, so I
They're gonna,
can't. Yeah.
well, we can police it. They can't, they're gonna have to jump the fence.
Yeah,
They're gonna have to jump the fence. I mean, that's just how, it's no different from when we have outdoor events where we're located. We rope everything in.
So we've never done this before. Why do we want to do it now?
Because it's a city ordinance.
No, why do we want to sell beer at the softball games? We've never done it before. Why are we doing it now?
we haven't, and before this is for the last meeting that you weren't here for, the discussion that happened in that meeting, but before, we always just had a police department that kind of looked the other way and let it go, even though we were in violation of an ordinance. And Doug, you can correct me if I'm wrong, he is uncomfortable with just looking the other way. It puts his officers kind of in a bad situation where they don't really, they can't just look the other way all the time for an ordinance or whatever. Whereas if there was somebody out there who was responsible for it, it would be their, it would be their responsibility to police it and take control of it.
Have they ever had issues in the past?
I mean, there's just a couple times that I can think of where people have gone down there. We've had to have the cops go down there or whatever, come from downtown down there. But I don't know if it's ever been anything.
I mean, if this is,
Really
if
major.
their presence is just there, sometimes that's enough,
Yeah, but we don't usually have a presence at the,
Right. We've never had before, but I'm just wondering, because I've never heard of any issues ever since I lived here for, since '97.
I can think of a couple different times that the police definitely had to go down there.
Well, I'm sure, it's not my fault, but I just,
Usually it ends up being a little bit later
right.
in the evening, but
Travis, I think the thought was that at the end of the day, there's always been alcohol there, so let's police it, have, I believe it's per ordinance or recommendation of the council in the past that the servers be tips trained, so they're trained to not serve somebody past the point of intoxication. I'm pretty confident there's been people way past the point of intoxication, judging by the piles of cans we used to have to deal with. So the idea was just, and Doug spoke on it last time, was if we're gonna have alcohol in the park, do it legally, where we got a dram shop in place, that business, whoever it would be responsible for policing that activity, where then you have somebody to go to in situations where they are a problem. So that's where
and we
we're
did
at.
talk about just because they have a dram shop, that's not gonna protect the city completely, because if something happens and somebody wants to go, they're gonna go after their dram shop probably and the city. But at least we would have a little extra layer of protection there.
So the concern from the Sauerkraut Days Committee is on Thursday night because of the ice cream social. So, if it's, why can't we just not do it on Thursday night?
Not do what? Sell beer on Thursday night.
Yeah.
Then we can't allow them to have alcohol at the park either. Because it's in the ordinance that they can't have alcohol in the park.
Well, the other thing is, I think too, the license is gonna be valid. I believe it's gonna be a 5-day license. I don't think you can break it up. Maybe you can, I don't know. So
No, you
technically, there would be a licensed establishment with a dram shop through the course of those days that would actually be covering that area, so you could not, you'd have to police it on Thursday night.
And just so you guys know, this isn't free to us. We have to pay $800 to move our dram shop there. So we're incurring a cost as well. So if you guys, this is not necessarily,
I'll be
A
perfectly
full
honest
profit
with you,
thing.
I have no
So-
clue in my life at all why you guys would ever want to do this. I cannot wrap my brain around it. More power to you that you do, but I do not know why. So whatever, but it is just a little bit of protection for the city. I don't know why you want to do it. I think it's a freaking nightmare.
You hate Sauerkraut Days Softball.
I do. I mean, that part specifically, I just think it would be, But what I would like to see is, and you guys can tell me if this is something you can work out. I would like to see if you're gonna fence it off, I understand what you're saying, if we could have some kind of a little break, like, down at that end, like where the two parks meet, so that people could go in there. That way you could check and see if they're bringing in their own alcohol or whatever, and we could stop people from taking alcohol into especially on Thursday night.
I believe part of the policing side of that will also be, as part of the alcohol license, they would have to define the clearly established drinking area.
Yep.
And so we're talking about fencing and different things like that, it would have to be defined, and that's part of the application.
Yep.
And then it would have to be clearly posted on that signage, or on the fencing and everywhere, no alcohol beyond this point type stuff.
And people are still gonna try it, but if they had somebody there,
Right.
I mean, I'm not asking you to get into a big confrontation with somebody if they wanna try to take it over. I'm not asking anybody to get into like a physical or anything like that, but at least just have a presence there saying it can't go past this point. Most people are gonna comply with it. I don't know if you'll have any trouble, but.
Did we ever get an opinion from our lawyer? Would be best to, how best?
Well, it's already in the ordinance to allow it. I did reach out to the insurance though, and he said it's nothing different than we've already done. And we're doing it, we're allowing, for instance, Sauerkraut Days to go on the street. We've allowed the fire department to go on the street.
Yeah.
So that's what he said, we're already doing it. I don't know what it would be any different. And he likes the idea of just the, there's somebody to, we could be drugging even if we weren't serving it, and it was, people did it there. But, I mean,
You still have people bringing their own, because that's what they did last year.
well, that would eliminate that.
It would.
This would eliminate that.
Well, it's not gonna,
Well-
people are still gonna do it. I mean, that's their problem.
Cut away.
Right.
Though.
Right.
We'll deal with that. If a cooler comes rolling up, we tell them that
Now,
they're not allowed.
in the past, I've worked there for the police in the park. Somebody was walking around with a bush light can, you told them you couldn't have alcohol in the park, and you have them dump it out, and they went on their way. Now, I'm sure
Back to their cooler.
I'm sure there's Yeti cups and everything else but we don't sit there and inspect every
Yeah.
one. But the point of it is, I would assume they're gonna have well-defined cans of alcohol. So even though we're not working for them, it would be really no different to us in the park. Or if they walked out of Bo Dillon's with cans of beer, which I'm sure has happened. We're just gonna be there as a presence that night anyway to tell people to not, so. Anyway.
Well, I talked to a longtime resident who said it was common on that baseball games at Sauerkraut Days to have beer in the dugouts and throughout the park there. Don't agree with that, but that's what happened. This person told me it's happened in the past. I've never been over there for the baseball games, so, and I'm not a drinker, so I don't want to be biased, but where you have a lot of kids there too, that's.
I mean, I'm pretty sure there's been years that they bought Casey's out of beer. I'm not exactly.
A lot of beer. Could be, I don't know.
Back in the day, it used to be like a thing.
Yeah.
I don't have a vote on this, but I'll give you my opinion. I don't have a problem with it. The only thing I would like to see, and the only place I would care to see a fence of any sort is down there where the old, I want to say bushes used to be, to keep them out of ice cream social. I mean, I don't care if you have a fence anywhere else. And that's the concern of the Sauerkraut Committee is getting it there, and I mean, I'm sure it happened every year since you've had it. I mean, they came from softball, but I mean, hopefully that stopped that a little bit. I mean, I don't know if it's gonna stop it 100%.
They might have to have a fence per the licensing.
Yeah.
Some type of barrier.
Yeah,
You could-
there
you got-
there has to be a barrier. Yep,
To a
There
certain
has to be
level,
some
and
kind of
things like
barrier.
that, but it's gotta be posted, no alcohol beyond this. point.
yep.
So.
Yeah, so you guys
I'll make a motion that we allow them to transfer their license and serve alcohol at the park, as long as they, you know, make sure that everything's, all their i's are dotted, their t's are crossed, especially with Doug, to make sure that everything's the way that it needs to be done and that they have a way to police it.
Got a motion, or a second? Got a second? Motion denied for lack of second. I guess do B then.
Well, we probably better still talk on A then. Are we just not gonna allow alcohol at the park then? I mean, we don't have a choice because it goes against our own ordinance, so that has to be the only other choice.
Who's in charge of policing that?
Doug?
Doug would,
Yeah.
Doug and his.
Doug and his department.
What's your thoughts?
I mean, kind of like the conversation we had last time, I mean, it's the city's choice to do what they want to do for the Sauerkraut event. Actually, this isn't even part of the Sauerkraut event, it's a separate event outside of Sauerkraut Days that occurs at the same time, from that aspect. So the city's got to make a decision whether they want to allow alcohol in the park. If you don't change the ordinance or don't modify that to allow it, everybody there is in violation, they're breaking the law from that standpoint. And it's going to put everybody, and that's just like some of the council people spoke on last time, it'll put everybody in a bad situation because it takes one citizen to complain who doesn't like it about the people in the park drinking and stuff like that. So I think there needs to be clarity from the city on what your position is related to alcohol in the park. We will police what we can police and deal with what the problems that arise from that standpoint. It's just a matter of if you're going to allow that in the park for that weekend or that event. Is the clarity we would like.
What do you guys want to do?
Well, I mean, you're just not gonna be able to have alcohol at the park. We can't really sit up here and violate our own ordinance.
So this would be a yearly thing that they would have to come and get that, change that license or that permit every year for Sauerkraut Days?
Who? Like if
Whoever
Sarah was
wants
doing
to
it?
do-
Like if Sarah was doing it.
Whoever does it
Can I
for
do it
that
next
year. Yeah, yeah.
Unless we, you know, look at it after Sauerkraut Days and change the ordinance to allow for just that week or something next year, but we don't have time to change the ordinance right now for this year, but,
I think you can do that by resolution, just for a special circumstance. I don't think you need to change the ordinance, because the rest of the year, you probably don't want alcohol in the park, is my understanding. I mean, is there any other events that you guys have had that has alcohol in the park?
well, the fire department's been there before, and we've approved their license there. I mean, every time we have a special event there, we usually approve a license.
I think the kicker with that is
License.
gonna be your dram shop though, is covering, you know, if
Yeah.
you just allow alcohol in the park for Sauerkraut Days and there's no dram shop,
I know.
there's no
Liability.
liability insurance, you know. Now, the other thing is, what I don't like about it is, me personally, is I think you would wanna do this every year. And maybe it goes well, and you wanna do it again. Maybe it's a mess, complete chaos, and you're like, we're not gonna do that again.
We may not have a business who wants to do it again. I mean, they may do it this year and find out that it truly is a nightmare and it's not worth it, and they don't want to do it again next year. We may not have a business every year that wants to do
Yeah,
it.
so my
But-
point would be, I think that you would just do it one time, if you did it, just see how it went, but.
Oh, then you run into issues of what business gets the right to do it.
There's six, I think there's at least 6 in town. that have
I'll guarantee you, I don't want to do it.
I'm not sure if there's really anybody else who would want to, but,
Probably not, I'm just saying though, I mean.
because they're the furthest off.
Gary?
Am I allowed to speak? Okay, so could you table this for like 5 minutes? We might be able to have a solution that helps both parties. We just need to talk amongst ourselves and come up with a solution. As we're sitting here, we're familiar with the dram shop rules, we're familiar with the beer garden rules, we're familiar with those things. Our committee's objection was focused around Thursday night. Really, the only other time we're in that park is Saturday morning, which the softball group does a great job coordinating, so we don't have parking on top of each other with car show and everything else. So if you could give us like maybe 5-10 minutes, maybe go on to the next couple items, and then let us come back, we might have a solution to help with this.
Fine with me.
Why don't we just take a recess?
We'll just move on.
I think the next one's procedural, our dram shop, everything's submitted. I mean, it's, just give us a couple minutes to talk with Chief Shannon, and we can get right back with you.
We'll come back to A and B. Discussion and possible action on approving liquor license permit for Sauerkraut Committee.
Move to approve.
Motion to approve, is there a second?
I'll second.
So a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Discussion and possible action on approving fireworks permit for Sauerkraut Days.
I'll move to approve.
A motion, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Discussion and possible action. Reference approving Downtown Reinvestment Grants. I think this one's for Walton.
There's two, there's one for Nick Walton and one for Travis Allen. They were the only two that applied, and this was, if you recall, this was after the month extension. There's $20,000 budgeted. These two applications would be $5,000 apiece. However, there was one thing that I did bring up, assuming you saw that, the discrepancies on what's on the website versus what's on the application. I wasn't here. I know that I seen in Travis's paperwork last year, he was denied the same concrete pad he wants to put in now. I believe an overhang, is that right, Travis?
Yeah.
And he was denied because it was considered new construction. So, Travis came in and talked to me and pointed out how the website has this information, but the application doesn't. So I wasn't here when this whole thing was created, so I wanted to bring it before you and let you guys decide. This has gone to historic preservation, as you see on the checklist. Both have approved. They did have, for Walton, they did have some questions, so they just met last Thursday, and he came in to speak to them and answered all the questions that they wanted, and they're good with both of them. But again, I don't know if you want to hear Travis's plan, what he's doing, but I just wanted to make sure that you guys were informed on all that.
What you doing, Travis?
Actually building it, just extending my loading dock that was out back is in bad shape. And I want it to become eventually like an arts and entertainment stage, so if I do any art shows or something, and Mark and I had been talking about, he wants to do something out back too eventually. Maybe I could start having a little bit of live music and art shows and bringing in other artists, and hopefully if it goes well or starts to work, I can move to Main Street and start doing an annual art event, work with the Vernon-Lisbon Art Council. I mean, all this stuff's moved slow for me, like I said before. Any help I can get helps me put money into the gallery, so get my gallery open sooner. But I wanted to get my exterior taken care of first, and I don't know if anybody's been by to see my back and how much nicer it is now. I've rolled and, do all the siding and stuff with that other grant, which really helped a lot. So the money I got back on that, I'm saving to put towards, the interior. So if I can get this grant, it'd help me, save some that I can take and apply to getting my interior renovated where I can get my gallery actually open sooner than later. So, but I just, Mark wants to maybe do a beer garden back there too or something, or, maybe we can start doing some things on Saturday afternoon for 3 hours or something like they do out at Cider or these places. And try to bring some stuff downtown, So it's kind of my idea, and I'm just wanting to have a shelter, just an overhang over everything, so if it happens to have any weather come in or something, I have equipment out there, it doesn't get, poured on right away before you get a chance to cover things or get it moved, so.
Will this help your drainage problem in that?
Yes, yeah, definitely.
And it's in further your business, so I don't have any problem with it.
I don't either. We have money sitting here, nobody else wants it, we have somebody who's trying to better their property, I don't know why we wouldn't try to help them.
I appreciate it.
Travis, are you gonna run a tile like we talked before a while ago and go into the storm sewer?
Well, I thought about that if I was gonna have to tear out my approach to my garage.
Right.
But we shot in some elevations and I wasn't able to drop down to my original back door height because my back door is lower than Mark's. And our whole game with this is to try to get everything from the corner Mark's building to flow to that drain. We just put it in back there. So I'll probably just have Vinny finish my gutters, and I'll tie the gutters back off my, because I'm basically going to do barely just break the bubble on, it's going to almost be a flat roof, so I can have the headroom on the stage, and then I'll just kick a drain back to that, my gutter on the garage and over and down, so I don't think I'll need to do that, because I'm not going to have to tear the approach out. See, if I was going to go to my original door height, that would have dropped everything a little lower, so I would have had to tear off that concrete. And then I was gonna ask maybe about running a tile over there, and then just run my gutter into that, but I don't think I'll have to now. And it'll save me a little money, not have to tear that section of concrete out, it's another, 20 by 8 feet that I can not have to replace. So, but I think I'll be fine, and like I said, the roof over the back is gonna help a ton, and especially if Mark does, we'll get all that water away from our building, and then get it going towards that drain. Then I know, Siggy and I talked about, the alley, he's got some plans for that after they do the 30 renovation thing, so he's put me at ease on that, so I'm not gonna have to bother chew back too much. I'll make him happy.
So when you go to do it, as long as you can mitigate your water
Right.
from the neighbors, that's.
Yeah, that's our whole point, is trying to get that water all flow away from the building, which is gonna help a ton, because I already raised that back door and everything. I'm just waiting on this, and I can start to move forward on this phase of my projects.
Well, I appreciate you coming tonight and pleading your case, because it always makes us, when we know what's going on, it's always a little better. I wish everybody would do that, but
Yeah, it helps.
I guess not everybody cares, but.
Well, it just helps me, and I wanna get moving to where I can
Yeah.
open my gallery, and I can start showing stuff here instead of at other galleries, and I can bring people here instead of to Marion or Ely.
Right.
I'd rather them come to Lisbon.
Now, of course, we're trying to find ways to keep Main Street
Right.
Still alive.
Well, that's the thing, I saw in the survey, that's what most people were wanting, is more things downtown, and that's, my eventual goal, hopefully, but, everything for me moves a lot slower nowadays than what it used to do, and
Yeah.
so it just takes time.
It's all right, you'll get there.
So, yeah, I just keep chipping away, I get a little anxious sometimes.
Ready to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll move to approve.
Second.
So thank you,
Motion and a
guys.
second, all in favor?
I was gonna tell you guys too, you guys are the best looking council I've especially that you guy. Looking
He
sharp
ain't
tonight.
sitting down there anymore, he's at the other end. Have some possible actions, reference a request for forgiveness of high water use at 114 Lincoln Avenue B.
So as you saw with the letter, this is for Lauren and Barb Pike. I believe they took over the residence after Lauren's mother passed away about a year ago. So anyway, they had it was in June, I believe, used 71,000 gallons of water. As you can see in the letter, they advised that this happened one other time. We found back in 2012 they had a little bit of excess use. It was only 7,000 gallons. But at that time, it was a pretty regular occurrence, to my understanding, that they just put a new water heater on, assumed it was bad, gave her forgiveness, and moved on. So I had met with the Pikes, and via ordinance, as you can see in the notes there, what I could do for them. He was not happy. He said he was not going to pay that. You'll see I copied the check. There's the information in there, what they did pay. And obviously you probably read his letter, so.
So do we know why it was high that month?
So when we read meters, we get triggered, Marcy calls, says hi.
She really, truly does.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I called him and I asked if I could go in there and read it. It was on a Friday afternoon. And he said no, that it's not spending now, and he's sure everything's fine. We continued to have the weekend chores individual monitor it, and it was fine. I talked to him later on the following week and said, we've read this thing for a few days now, it hasn't moved. Obviously what was there is gone now. That our ordinance reads, we can, you know, one or two things. We can monitor it again for 15 days, and if we don't see anything, assume everything's fixed, and, you know, they have to come and ask for some sort of forgiveness from you guys for what our ordinance says. Or we can pull the meter out, we can send it to a third party, they can test it, and if it tests within AWWA ranges, that then they would have to pay for the testing and the bill. And he said basically the same thing he told Brandon, he wasn't gonna pay for it. He doesn't need us to do anything. So I believe with reading this thing that whatever was leaking has been fixed.
That's
I've
pretty
never
good
had,
leak, isn't it?
what?
That's pretty good leak.
It'd have to be, we've discussed, it'd have to be continuous water, like I put in the, like a toilet valve, like continually running.
Well, you know exactly what I'm gonna say, and if you guys vote to give any kind of forgiveness on this, we have another situation in town that had the same problem. So I'm all for helping everybody out, but I just want you guys to know that whatever you do, you're gonna be setting a precedence potentially, one way or another, and just be ready for it, because this is not the only person in town who has had this type of problem. And what was the result of the other one?
I think we
25%,
paid 25%.
of the water and the sewer
Uh-huh.
So I've calculated that, that's in the notes of the packet. One other caveat with this, obviously this is in Mary Louise's name, so what I have instructed Marcia to do, or what I believe we should do is when, you know, usually a family member calls or we find out that that person's passed. We get a hold of that family and decide what they're gonna do, if they want the water left on or shut off. At that point, we need to transfer that into those people's names who are gonna be responsible for it, because in this instance, it's still in Mary Louise Pike's name. She's no longer here. The house is now sold to a different family. So when he came to talk to me on the 16th or 17th, I told him to write the letter. They were closing on the house the next day. So I'm not sure, I'll have to get with Mark once we decide what's going on to figure that, the next step with that. But I think in the future, it would be a wise decision to stop when the person passes and then get it into the name of somebody who's responsible for the property, so we don't have this situation of this bill out there potentially not receiving.
And I don't wanna do this, but what you would do in that situation is you'd have to put a lien on the estate.
Correct.
But that's not obviously what I'm saying I wanna do, but
No,
that
I-
is what you would have to do
Correct.
in the way this is currently.
So what did we do in the last situation you guys said?
We paid 25%, I think that's per
That's
ordinance.
per
I
the
think.
ordinance.
Yeah.
And I can grant that to city administrator or council.
And they were also at like 71,000 gallons or something, I mean, it was a ridiculous amount.
It wasn't that, it was something, it was,
And they had somebody come in and fix a toilet or something,
and this you
that's
don't
all
even
the
know. Now keep in mind, that's a lot of water for somebody to use, but you don't know, we don't have a root cause of this. You know, you can't even say like, well, somebody filled their pool, because, I mean, even the largest of pools is not
problem.
71,000 gallons.
So if it was
14,000
sold-
it's a pretty big
Yeah.
one.
I guess my question is, if it was sold and it went through an inspection, wouldn't the inspector notice something
No,
with
not a
possibly?
toilet or something.
Whatever it is,
Possibly.
it's fixed,
Oh, it is.
because it's now back to normal.
I mean, they
So-
could have done,
Honestly,
sometimes you
they-
can wiggle a handle on a toilet and.
correct,
it stops.
and they
I
could,
mean,
you know, they could, and when it doesn't get used, you know, she's been gone a year.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Oh,
You know,
yeah,
I've already replaced something like that in my house, and my place is newer than hers, so,
right.
things happen, and, it very well could rear its head again to the new people.
Right.
And just by my calculations here, it's a little less than 2 gallons a minute, which would be like for a toilet, would
So,
run that much.
They didn't use any water in 6 months, and all of a sudden you use 71,000.
Well, it's like 100,
It's like 100 gallons here or there.
so I got, they went 6 months and didn't use, so for 6 months, they didn't use any water previous to that, and then it was 200 gallon, 300 gallon. 1 month was 2,300 gallons, so I don't know, that would have been right around the time that she passed. I don't know if she, some of it could have been her, some of it could have been cleaning, or what have you, but There was no gallons for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months, and then there was a 71,700. And, you know, I've talked to Marcia about when you see stuff like this let's get ahead of this and let people know. You know, a lot of people are just filling pools or doing something, but, you know, there are people that appreciate the call to, hey, thanks for letting me know, and they do find things, they go looking for it.
And there is another situation, like I had talked about, that Brandon just took care of because he has the authority to do that, but it's the same similar situation, a husband and wife, the husband passes away, the wife isn't there for a while because she's staying with her daughter and whatnot, and all of a sudden they get a big bill like that as well. And so I called Brandon and the guys went over and like looked at some things or whatever. She did have somebody come in and like look at the toilets and stuff like that. He said there wasn't a problem, but literally the next day it was fine. So whatever he did, again, maybe he jiggled a handle, I don't know. Whatever he did, it fixed the problem.
Well, if we went with our rules we have now, and they don't want to pay, there's really nobody to go against, is there?
Well, like I said, I can
Go
contact
The
Mark.
state,
Unless it's been sold.
Unless the estate, I assume, well, yeah, I suppose you could go, if the estate's still open,
The neighbors don't have a pool or anything.
yeah.
Not that big.
I mean, literally, my pool is a big pool and it's 14,000 gallons. So I mean, you're talking
Oh, yeah.
a lot of water.
What you guys want to
Maybe
do?
their yards are over in
I think we just follow. the
So I
rules
think we have to
now.
follow our rule.
I think we do too.
We've done it to others, and we just can't make an exception for that.
I just
What, pay
really hate that.
25% of it?
Well, if we've done that, then we could do that, 25%.
Well, that's what our rule is.
We can just follow, I just put this on because he wanted more.
But what was the bill?
It was,
$1,080.17.
And they're willing to pay $54,
They
so
paid 54,
Which
and
was their
the
regular.
credit would be
bill.
$258.50, and the new total prior to the $54 credit would be $821.67.
I just want you guys to know that this makes me feel really, really crappy to sit up here and do this to people who are lifelong residents of this town, and I hate it. And I think that we should look at these things on individual basis, or on an individual basis, and look at the circumstances and adjust accordingly.
Well, we do kind of do that. I mean, that's the discussion that we're having. We could have chosen to do something differently, but we didn't.
We don't, because when I brought the last one up, that was the same exact answer that I got. We have to follow our ordinance, and, I mean, here, you know, again, lifelong residents that have never had this problem, and now we're giving them a $700 water bill to somebody who just lost her husband. It's really crappy.
I get it.
What do you want to do? Need a motion?
I move we follow the rules we have in place.
I mean, we have to do this. If you're gonna do that, you can just do it, right, Brandon?
I can't, he wanted the letter, I said,
Okay.
if you want more, write the letter, I can't approve more than what's there.
Okay.
So what do you guys want Brandon to do now then with the remaining balance that they're not willing to pay? How do you want him to collect on that?
And one thing is well, go ahead, 'cause
What?
I haven't let him know what maybe they'll just pay, I don't know, he just said he wouldn't, but I guess I would move direction then, if he just chooses not to pay it.
Yeah, I think we'll have to decide then what we want to do.
If he doesn't decide to pay it, you put a lien.
Did they ever find a leak? Or what was going on?
No.
Because his homeowner should, I would think, cover
I think if he would.
any of the rent.
Yeah, but the person that had the other one, I offered her to come talk, and basically it was just, no, this is what our ordinance is, and this is all we can do. So she didn't even address the council because she was basically just told from the get-go.
Yeah, what do you want to do now? Let's go.
Well, I made a motion, and if there's no second, then we
Oh,
got.
I'll second.
motion and a second, what was it?
To follow the ordinance.
Follow the
Follow.
ordinance? A motion and a second to follow the ordinance on this. All in favor?
Aye.
I,
Opposed?
Aye.
All right, and then Brandon, you'll.
just a second, Doug, can we put that on the agenda for next meeting just to discuss? Moving forward,
If, yeah, okay.
looking at it, a case by case instead
So
of,
it'd be two ordinances.
yes, yes.
And I could put both of them on there just
I
as
think
discussion items.
each case is different,
Then if we wanna change it, we'll do the reading thing.
yeah, yeah.
So what I'm gonna order Brandon to do is, they'll talk to him about what ordinance says, if he refuses to pay for it, contact the attorney, see what we do. To get it.
Well, before you contact the attorney, let's talk about it at the next council meeting and see if anything changes.
Yeah.
I'll put this item back on.
All right, let's go back to discussion possible action in reference to alcohol use at City Park, Green Sauerkraut Days Softball Tournament. Does anybody got anything to say on this?
Yeah, sure do. Am I allowed to speak? Okay, excellent. So thank you for your patience. First of all, this should have been worked out in a work session. That's my fault. As we're dealing with private businesses, volunteer committee, and government entities, sometimes those don't cross over. So this should have been handled ahead of time. We were able to go out in the hall after hearing the conversation, talking with the chief. We've got a couple different options. So if the council is kind of all or none, either we grant the permit or we go strict enforcement. In talking with, you have 3 officers here of the 5. We don't represent, well, we do represent all 18 members, but we're definitely not speaking for folks we haven't spoken with. That's kind of a tougher option than the ice cream social service. If we're gonna go all or none in the park for 4 days versus a couple, 2.5 hours. Again, Travis is helping administer the softball tournament, but that's not what he's here for either. We think there's workable room with proper fencing, proper isolation. When we say policing, we don't mean officers. We don't have officers police our beer garden. We have trained staff with the tips. So I mean, you're following right the same things we're talking about, right? If we need to sit down with business owners and figure out that 2-hour thing on Thursday, maybe that's something we need to do. You're absolutely right. Permit's a 5-day permit. You don't get to pick or choose or set your hours. It's a 5-day permit. So in our quick conference in the hall, if that's what's keeping some people objecting, then there's things that we may and then will work towards resolving for that 2.5 hour portion during the ice cream social. If we're gonna ask Chief Shannon and his officers to strictly enforce, that's more of a negative than the positives, if you will, from a Sauerkraut perspective. Again, we're not a city-based committee. We're all volunteers. We're not, it's tough from our perspective. We come to the committee asking the same permits, the same licenses, the same things as these folks are asking. So we have no say over that park just as much as anybody that rents it for a birthday party or whatever. To be very clear on one other item, our issue with beverages in the park during ice cream social is not from the softball tournament. Absolutely not. They're there, but they don't want back. Yes, we would need to do a fence and those things for a proper beer garden. Our issue is from other adjoining businesses and the aforementioned who can empty the Casey's cooler quicker. We do have staff, committee volunteer staff, that sit at that end of the park and do have to, again, I'll use the word police, but it's not policing, monitor those areas. We really don't have issues from the softball tournament. I've been at this 11 years. The only time I've been called, I alluded to this at the last meeting, the only time I've been called down is to make change for 100. So I really don't have issues from my standpoint either.
I think they could have somebody there to help with that part of it, to stop it from even coming in.
We have someone fairly close. Again, this could have been resolved in a work session. I take responsibility for that. And then the 4 of us could have come together, the 5 of us could have come together as a group. So that's on me.
The other thing to take into consideration too is Wednesday night, there is a movie in the park.
Good point. Did not think of that.
So that's young kids as well.
But
So that's another night that,
the ambulance entrance we keep staffing at, that's the removable park on East South Street. We keep someone there, we keep it barricaded, that way if an ambulance needed to get in and out, they have direct access. It's not the ideal segue in my personal opinion, but we're talking about the matter of a couple white posts.
yeah, right.
We're not talking yay or nay. So with the other officers here, that's what we talked about, the committee officers here, that's what we talked about out in the hall. if we're gonna go strict enforcement, that to us is a worse alternative. I hope that helps clarify, maybe I just made it worse, I'm good at that. But, that's all I have, thank you.
Anybody else, any questions?
I do think on a future agenda, we need to talk a little more about beer consumption at ball games. There's a lot of other factors in there. Some of them are school-sponsored, some of them are partner rec. And what's been brought up is it's a lot more beer drinking done there than I realized. You know, I'm not upset over if somebody has a beer or two, but the problem is how to write an ordinance to keep people from drinking the whole six-pack and then getting in their car and driving.
Well, the problem is how to write an ordinance to protect the city, which is what our job is.
Yeah, that's true too.
And that's why it would be better to let them take the risk and not the city.
Yeah, but the city will get named anyway. Yeah.
Same as us, we're all,
Right?
Right, Vegas, who we're gonna get?
it's.
We are,
same
but at
with
least
fire.
they would have a large dram shop policy that would
Yeah.
cover, I mean, you still gotta prove the damages,
Yep.
We're good.
you know. I don't know, I made a motion and it failed for lack of a second, so I don't think I can make the motion again, so
Do we wanna
I
make a
think one of
motion?
you guys has to, one of you to,
I'm not.
well, you can.
No,
I mean, one of
I'm
us
out.
do.
You
John
can,
or
you can
Travis.
make, you can make a motion, so, you don't have to abstain from this.
Yeah, she does.
Yes, she does.
I do.
She
Not
would,
Vegas,
I do.
the one doing it.
she's on the liquor license and she
No,
would
I'm not on the,
clearly,
technically I'm not on the liquor license, but I don't, I
she would
just-
clearly financially benefit from it.
Yes.
She definitely needs to.
And that's, I.
All right, does either of you wanna make a motion?
I'll go ahead and make the motion.
Thank you. I'll second it.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
They,
Motion fails for lack. We got three, got three.
2 and 2.
Miss Sarah has to abstain.
Anybody want to use it?
That worked. Well, then I guess we're back to no alcohol in the park for Sauerkraut Days.
Which if that's what we're gonna go with, our 180 people roughly, is gonna be down to more like 40.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
And that's terrible for the city, because that brings
That's
people
140 people that won't be going to Bill's to get a steak sandwich, and 140 people that won't be shopping at Casey's, and 140 people that won't be going to Glenn's or shopping in your Groton hot dog stand. Yes, that's exactly what's happening right now.
so,
You'll lose it.
Yep. Yeah.
but I'm okay either way, I just wanna know what, just like Doug, we just wanna know what the rules are so we can tell people.
And that's why we went out in the hall and talked, because that's the option, we,
Don't.
strict enforcement is just as bad as, if not worse. Because we pay, so just, I know I'm getting off on a quick tangent here. We pay the overtime hours, we pay for those service calls beyond the on-call. It's a bill we gotta factor in, it's a risk assessment. You know, we don't let carry out of downtown, we staff those entrances pretty heavy. That's, yeah, so from a committee perspective, we're just not prepared to support that, but.
Can I ask you why you don't want them to do their license there? What,
I
or you just
don't,
don't want alcohol
I
there,
don't
period?
think alcohol in the park is appropriate. And it's impossible to keep people, even if you checked everybody's cans, people, I know a guy that always had a big tumbler of cola, and then I found out later he's an alcoholic and half of it was booze. So you
But that's
can't-
still gonna happen regardless,
That's gonna
like,
happen, so there's no.
so you might as well have somebody there controlling it versus, I mean, I can ask somebody if they're coming into my beer garden, I need to know what's in your glass. As they're coming in, I can actually police that. If it's wide open and somebody comes in with their tumbler, who's gonna police it?
I mean, I would have
I guess
had a
that's-
discussion
that's-
before the vote if I had known that you were gonna vote that way, but I just didn't think that you would vote nay for it, but, I mean, you do understand that them having a license there is much better than us just leaving it willy-nilly.
I don't really, if something happens, the dram shop would help, but we'd still be listed.
It wouldn't go past the dram shop.
Well,
You'd
I'm
be
gonna
settled
tell you
with the
from
dram shop.
personal experience, one year,
It's
A
gonna
couple-
keep that sneaking it in down. I mean,
Because they're gonna still bring.
And it's also gonna keep people from getting, if people are paying for beer, I'm gonna tell you right now, they are not gonna get so
They're gonna
Drunk.
drink, they're gonna drink less.
that they can't walk,
There
because
is-
Good breaks. Good breaks.
Tip certified, tip trade.
We can legally let somebody sell beer in the park and not violate our ordinance or our agreement with the person we got the property from.
I know that you can serve alcohol in the park. Technically, this B is what you would have to approve. Technically, it's not A, but I was told to put this on the agenda for A. Because technically, the ordinances already cover alcohol in the park as long as there's a licensed liquor establishment serving alcohol. That ship has sailed per the ordinances.
Okay.
Now, the agreement, I don't know where that thing
the
is.
agreement's 100 years old.
I don't know if it's
It's so
If it's
outdated.
enforceable, I don't have any idea about
I
that.
don't know that anybody's
No.
got a copy of it anymore.
What I will say is, item B, Sarah wanted to talk about, they have to pay this money in order to get their liquor license. So it's waiting for the approval by the city before she pays her money to this liquor license. So item B was actually gonna end up being a special meeting on this week, because we don't have that document yet from them, because they haven't paid, because they're not gonna pay for something that they weren't sure they were gonna get.
I wouldn't,
So, therefore, we're gonna have to have a special meeting anyway for the liquor license. So, it's really B is
but
what.
Travis needs to let his teams know if there's not gonna be any alcohol at the park, because the thing is, Brandon, for those softball teams, some of them are pretty serious about that game, and if they're not gonna be able to come down here and play, they're gonna wanna get into a tournament somewhere else.
Well, I would suggest having a meeting, and I talked to Sarah about this, that we need to get this going, because we have to submit it, they have to get it done, we have to click the approval, then they have to go back in and do their thing and print their certificate before they can start selling alcohol.
Right.
So, I suggested having a special meeting on Wednesday night.
But we've had other events in the park, to answer your question. We've had other events in the park where there's been alcohol, but it's
Fire
been covered by a license.
Well, fire department, yeah.
Yes.
I thought they were in the street.
No.
No,
It was
they
at the
were in
park.
the park.
In the park, okay.
So, I mean, do you have a difference of opinion now?
Well, I just have one or two more questions. On the Sauerkraut committee, you'd be okay with them serving liquor in the park then?
Not liquor.
Not liquor.
Not beer.
That's a difference.
So I'm gonna be very clear on this, Councilman Barsley. The committee, as a group, was opposed to the ice cream social portion.
Yeah.
The options that are being discussed at this time are well beyond that. So we have the option as well as a committee to cancel the event. You just don't have a softball tournament. We don't want to go that road. That is, in my opinion, jump in here, gang. In my opinion, that is just as difficult as full enforcement. It's an option, again. I know you attend meetings, I'm not speaking for you as a committee participant. So John, just open his memory, he comes to most meetings if I remember.
Well,
correctly, one
I
thing.
missed the last few.
But that's the same option for us. We don't want to cancel the softball tournament, we want to bring people to town.
Yeah.
If we gotta figure something out, if we gotta go sit here and have a rock, paper, scissors contest to figure out the 6:30 to 8:30, we'll figure it out.
Did,
Option full enforcement is just as tough as option no softball tournament.
were you opposed to full enforcement as far as people bringing their own beer?
We discussed that very briefly collectively as a committee, and that was more unpopular than the options we're talking about.
Well,
And
I'm
Doug can't
shooting
do
from
it.
memory here, gang, jump in.
I mean, Doug, you can't do that.
That, what comes back to the point before, where council can make a decision to allow alcohol in the park for this event and not have a liquor licensed person there. You can pass a resolution to, during this event, we're going to allow alcohol in the park. And that's fine. We will deal with what we have to deal with because of that decision. It's just usually more chaos, more drunkenness, more issues, as we talked about last council meeting, than you have if you have a liquor license holder there controlling that. When people bring coolers in and have no control measures over that versus a trained establishment, licensed person with insurance managing that.
Well, because here's the thing, John, and here, I don't drink a drop of anything, so I am not sitting in the park drunk, but my family are all drunks, okay? So what happens is, they come into the park with the coolers, and the coolers have the beer, they've got the liquor, they've got the Jell-O shots, I mean, it's everything, so you,
I'd still like to discuss this in general at the next meeting, if it isn't too full a schedule, so we can resolve what we're gonna do going forward. But I'll go ahead and make a motion to accept then the licenses one time as a trial to see how it works out. Because I certainly don't know how it's gonna work.
second that
Motion
motion.
passed.
Do we have to revote?
Well, I think we should,
Yeah, you gotta have a
Just
second.
real quick.
All right,
I'll second.
second. All in favor?
aye.
Opposed? Sarah can't vote, so. All right, where the hell were we?
Thank you for your patience. We'll see how this
Thank you.
experiment
Thank you for your
goes.
Good luck.
patience.
And we'll all have a better education next year.
Good luck.
Now, we said that we're not gonna do B tonight, Brandon, because we gotta wait till Wednesday to do B, or can we approve it
we have to,
subject
we
to?
didn't pay for anything yet because of fear of,
No, we can approve
But I can
that.
make a motion to approve it, subject to you getting all your paperwork and
Yeah.
everything done,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
Brandon will
Yeah.
police that.
Yeah.
And that's my motion.
okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So, let me, before you guys leave,
Yes, sir.
so you talked about doing stuff downtown here.
Yes.
Are we still doing basically everything you said?
We got more than we thought.
Good.
I kind of didn't get, this is recorded, I kind of didn't get much paperwork done today. We have got more food vendors than we expected, we have more vendors than we expected. Right now, we're pending some insurance and some other things, petting zoos a go, everything for kids zones a go. We're actually gonna come down Saturday morning and we're gonna have to measure spaces and do electrical work. Because this is a whole new dynamic. With no carnival, we may not have enough breaker space on the big breakers. We've got a lot of work to do in a very short amount of time. So this is, I'm not trying to beat a drum, but the work that these volunteers have done has been just, we couldn't have done this a couple years ago, 3, 4 years ago. Our committee's growing, and it takes people like this, but we're really excited. Amy's actually gonna start posting about all the new events, and we probably, after discussing it, I probably should have started last week. We've got new bands, we've got new food vendors, we've got new total.
U-Trip is amazing, just so you
I
guys
know,
know.
like, what was I thinking? Anyway, sorry, they're awesome, they're super
Yeah.
easy to work with.
Yeah, they're awesome.
Everything we've got from the city coordination is well, I mean, we're talking about barricade placement a week and a half before. This is looking solid.
Good.
So does that help answer your question? Any specifics?
So, I mean, I wasn't asking
Yeah.
specific, but.
Downtown restaurant, because we don't have the carnival, downtown restaurants and businesses can open up out front in the street. I don't know the whole license thing, that's not our deal. But, have outdoor seating for restaurants, you don't have to sit up on the sidewalks and over up against the window. This is exciting. I just hope it doesn't flop.
Hey, just to clarify, I know there was mention earlier that I don't like Sauerkraut Days, and I wanna just
You may have heard
clarify.
that, yes.
First of all, I owned a bar downtown for many, many, many Sauerkraut days. Second of all, I live right up the street from the old campground, so during Sauerkraut Days, I usually have a wonderful group of people who camp out right down the street from my house.
My phone is not going to start ringing Sunday night at 10 o'clock. I cannot tell you how excited I am.
Yeah, so it's not that I hate Sauerkraut Days, I just,
We're
but
starting.
I really do appreciate all the work that you guys put into it, because it is a lot. One year Doug signed us up to collect cans and bottles for laser baseball. I wanted to kill him, like, it was a lot of work. I think we might have done garbage as well.
That's the agreement, and the annual prices had to go up again, and it just reminded me we need to confirm that group. So,
Yeah, I did tell him I'd kill him if he ever signed us up for that again. It's a lot of work, so I know you guys do a lot.
Takes a good team, and this group is fantastic.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jerry. Good luck, thank you.
I'm sure it'll work.
When is your next meeting? I'm still not on. the-
Wednesday, 6:30, same location.
Can somebody put John on the email list?
Yeah,
Resolution 24, 2020, 1, renewing appointments to the History Center Board.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
It's a resolution I gotta ask.
Oh.
Travis?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Stephanie?
Aye.
Resolution 25, 2021, approving plat of survey for Hill First Edition, which is in Lincoln County, within 2 miles fringe of city limits.
So this went to P and Z last week for approval. This is just a courtesy for Lynn County reference to the fringe agreement. This is the property of land that the new Lisbon Boulevard dissected. So basically, he's selling off the east portion so he doesn't have to deal with the road. He's keeping the west side, but also, I believe he owns around Sea's Face, correct?
Motion,
Motion to approve.
second.
Second.
Sarah?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Stephanie?
Aye.
Travis?
Aye.
Resolution 26, 2021, approving capital improvement transfers.
This is the yearly capital improvement transfers that were already approved.
Move to approve.
Second.
A motion and a second, Travis?
Aye.
Stephanie?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Resolution 27, 21, approving library employee salaries for fiscal year 22.
So I believe this is done by the library board, is that correct? And Amy was out of town. Usually it's on our annual salary resolution, but since she was out of town, this one's got separated, so this is just follow.
Move to approve.
Second.
A motion and a second, John?
Aye.
Stephanie?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Travis?
Aye.
Set public hearing for business 30 project bids.
This is for V and K. We need to do this for August 9th, and it's going to be in the paper this Thursday.
Motion to approve.
A motion,
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Approve amendment of contract for housing rehabilitation grant.
So this is the block grant from last year. As you recall, Mark came here last time. We reopened it. Because of what ratio and COVID and everything, and us opening it back up, we want to use the funds that were given to us through the grant last year in this fiscal year. So therefore, you need approval to do that by council, and that's what this is for.
Have you got any new applications?
They go to him.
Oh, you must.
Yeah.
Motion to approve.
Second.
A motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Correspondence,
None.
City engineer report. Anybody got
I
anything?
think Travis and I will handle everything. Hopefully Travis will.
As long as he's not asking for money.
Alright. Hopefully, are you gonna ask for money?
No.
We'll have another talk then.
I'll look for it, report.
Well, you guys saw Highway 30's back open. We just got some dirt work and some sod to go in there. That went fairly smooth. We did have a chance to take a stump grinder out and try it out. We did do 5 stumps in 3 hours, so actually faster than what we thought it was gonna be. Once again, we're waiting until after Sauerkraut Days before we start punching a lot of holes in our parking and dirt stuff. So I'm pretty excited for that piece of equipment. It actually worked exactly like they said it would, so. We got our paint sprayer in. The factory rep came out today, did a tour with us on this and went through everything with us, so hopefully tomorrow we can start painting the lines. There is a paint shortage, so we.
Here.
We do have enough paint to do, I would say, all of our stuff except for the curbs, which we were gonna hold off painting the yellow on the curbs to get more of that excess paint wore off from the snow plows and stuff. So we should have everything almost completed by Sauerkraut Days, minus maybe a white line along the edge of the road somewhere here or there, so. And then the big one, I saw the email Brandon sent out to you guys about the tower repair. Just so you know, that was all caused by dirty backfill material and the vibrations from the train. So when we dug it up, we found it pieces of curb and sidewalk actually laying on top of the water main. So just the years of vibration is what deteriorated that, and we found it from start to finish, so we should be filling the tower hopefully tomorrow afternoon.
I think that should be turned into insurance. I mean, really?
Are you sure it was the best by Rachel?
Yeah. I think go ahead. See what you got.
I mean, we're on roll with insurance, why not try? That's all right.
Everything went, I mean, went swell. We couldn't ask for a better turnout with the live tap we had to put in. No issue with boil order, just because everything did kind of fall into place. We have the people from the Quad Cities come out and do the live tap. I mean, they had the parts. We needed 200 feet of pipe, and there's only 400 in the state, so we were lucky to get the pipe we needed. So I mean, we're pretty lucky for right now. I mean, normally I'd say finding the pipe isn't a problem,
The
Right
guys are coming down on you, you did something right.
but yeah. So I guess technically I did ask for money because we had to fix for this. So my trend is old.
God, it's so nice when you're not here.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No.
Park and Director report?
He's at Carroll at the baseball game, but just a reminder that the movie in the park is Wednesday night before Sauerkraut Days. I think it's Crude or something like that, I've never heard
Yeah,
of it.
something.
Yeah.
The movie's Crude.
The
and
second
they'll
one
show
of
it
it.
at dark.
Yeah.
Police department,
Nothing additional unless
there
you.
it should be in your packet, the June report.
Oh, from the police department.
I do like the one coming down the hill there in Mount Vernon.
The digital signs,
Yeah, I get yelled.
we finally got those up.
I get yelled every morning.
They're very helpful when they're on.
They are.
So they're solar panel, we got them timed for kind of like the peak times of traffic and stuff like that, so we'll see, hopefully, if we can get some more mileage out of it, but yes. As I mentioned last time, they are on now.
Catch yourself.
Oh, I'll remember it, and next time I'll forget. Please, or fire chief.
So the fire department's gonna do the bathtub races at Sauerkraut Days again, so I just received 4,000 water balloons for that. So if you're bored on Saturday afternoon, I believe it's 2 o'clock, come on down.
This Saturday?
Sauerkraut Days. Pancake breakfast is coming up. Our plan is still to do it in person. We also are gonna have,
What would your other option be? Did you
well,
say ask
takeout,
them? Oh,
delivery,
I
yeah.
thought maybe you were gonna do a virtual. Maybe stop sit there and watch you do something.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Breakfast with the chief. We haven't taken to eat breakfast.
So anyway, I'll be,
Okay.
just traditional pancake breakfast, Labor Day. And then just to let everybody know, Tuesday, August 3rd is our plan to wash the streets. And that's assuming everything with the water system's back to the normal as it can be. That's it for fire.
City administrator report.
Drayton and I met with YTT. They are the engineers for the sports complex. Met with them last week. Just went over the finer details of the phase 1. There are some things in there that, like crowning of the soccer fields and such, that we took out. Just talked about some different stuff. So she's supposed to have back to me what the final estimate will be for phase 1. And then the plan is to put it out to bid in the fall. I said that's when people solidify their work for the winter and the spring. So I'll update you further on that. And they are also meeting with Dave at B&K to talk about the well, which she said they've already been in contact, but she was going to reach out again. Reference the water project and the income survey, we're down to 28. So as I said, we will get there, but 28 more surveys. Marcia and I are trying to think of ways to get a hold of people. So there are some people that were on the list that we went in on phone numbers just to encourage them to call in. Some of the numbers were bad, so what we've done is we sent letters to all the bad numbers and kind of did a 2-for-1 thing to let them know that, hey, if you haven't done your income survey, please do it. Plus, we put in there, we have outdated information on you, so if you could give us your phone number, if we have a utility emergency, we could make sure that you're in the loop. So hopefully, we get both of those back. Doing a park walkthrough this week with the school for the August 1st transfer. That way they have a little bit of time to, if we need them to do anything. So we're doing that this week. Met with one contractor, local contractor on the barn site, just to give him some access to peek in some things. I'm expecting to bid back by the end of the week for that stabilization project.
How many bids are you gonna get?
Well, I've reached out to 2 local contractors, and so far only one of them. Both of them said that they were interested, and one has physically been ready to go with, so. I only know of 2 that are into that. I don't know how many you,
Who did you reach out to?
Blinks Brothers and Nick Walton. Or Walton Construction, so, if anybody has anybody else, I'd be more than welcome, or more than happy to go out. Again, they don't have to go to, I understand they don't have to meet any standards with the stabilization. This is just any contractor can go and stabilize. It's once you start rehabbing is when you gotta meet the code for the regulations for the historic preservation. John Deere tractor and all the attachments are in, so we'll be arranging delivery with that through John Deere. That's Drayton's tractor. And last but not least, we received $104,191.40 from FEMA, which means that is complete.
Travis, that is actually how you should come to the meeting. I'm giving you money back.
Bringing money to us.
Here's what I have for you.
Bringing money to us.
Well,
So,
Brandon's bringing it, Travis is spending it.
Hey, in Travis's defense,
No.
I guess, you did do the tree stumps in less time than we thought it was gonna be, so you
Yeah,
can save us.
that
some
is
money.
awesome.
So thank you. Appreciate it.
Well, I think a
Gotta
lot.
find a silver lining somewhere.
well, the other thing, you know, we tried to, that's was what, significantly less than what
I think,
everything.
I think you can only Band-Aid things for so long before they have to be replaced, and, well, this might be the year that things are getting
And one thing I will
replaced.
say, there is probably a big ticket item,
No,
that just for you to think about,
no.
is mowing on Highway 30, the ditches. We gotta figure something out. So, anyway,
Travis, that is,
You can't mow it.
I know, it's fine, good.
I don't know what to say.
Well, we just came back, we just played over in Ayrshire, Iowa, and my drummer Bob was driving my grade and pulling our equipment, but he was talking about on the way back. It's interesting, you notice that they were cutting hay on sections of it, other sections was just prairie grass, and they were letting it just naturally grow. I don't know if anything like that might be an option, but that's just what he was telling me, he noticed. What he thought was pretty interesting, they were round baling sections of the ditches, it's like every so many hundreds of feet or whatever, then the next section was just like natural prairie grass, then the next, so I don't know.
the problem is along there, there's just not a lot, there's like maybe one stretch across
Right.
from
That's
like the 900 block there by
Right.
Brothers, that, it's actually Downtown Brothers.
But you know what I mean, it just, like they were doing is just letting it be natural, you know, prairie grass, letting it grow.
And it's hard for us to even get that, I mean, I think it looked hideous. So Travis actually got an attachment for the skid loader and went down 2 passes along the shoulder, which made it look better, especially because, you know, the deer are gonna start running here soon, and it's nice to be able to at least see them a
See
little
'em.
bit.
That's what we made the ditches, Travis, is
Yeah, it's not the whole,
not
It's
so
not
that
the whole
it's just,
thing,
it'll
but-
give a couple, even a second if you see something coming out.
Right.
That's why you know about that in the ditch.
so anyway, that's something for down the road, but
Well, that bypass pushed a lot of the, like, the foxes and, I heard some bobcats go around too. So push them all this direction instead of towards the south.
that's it.
Council report? Travis,
Nothing.
Steph.
I just have a couple things. One is I would like to congratulate the softball and baseball teams for making it to state. That's pretty amazing to have both of them, you know, go. The girls got second, the boys are playing. I think they lost today, but, so that's good. And then, I was gonna mention the movie on the park, at the park, but since I did it for Drake, I won't do that again. The other thing, we razz Travis a lot during these meetings. We are just messing with him. He does a great job. And Travis, I'm really glad that we're able to get you the stuff that you need to be able to do your job right, because you do a really good job. And I know that if you have the equipment that you need, it will even be better. So we're just picking
Thank you, I appreciate
on you. Travis Baggy. Way too many Travises in one room.
it.
All right, no more picking on you, Diego.
I'm easy pick.
John.
Slide a hand around.
I'd like to say thanks to Travis and his crew too for repairing that water line without having to get into a boil order. That was great. The Friends of the Library is having a trivia contest Friday during Sauerkraut Days. They'll be right west of the library in Southeast Lynn for that. It starts at 7 o'clock and will go till around 8:30 or dark. And $2 per round or $10 for all the rounds that they're able to play. And it's a fundraiser that supports the library. And the Lisbon Historic Preservation Commission had filed for a $50,000 grant. They got rave reviews on their application, but they didn't get the grant. So, but thanks for all their effort. That's all I have.
Sarah.
I also wanted to congratulate the baseball and softball teams. Good job out of them. I know they wanted a little bit more, but, so congratulations to the coaches and the, team members. What else was I gonna say? Thank you to everyone who, supported our business as far as, park goes. I appreciate that as an individual citizen. And that's really all I have.
Hey, I forgot something. I know we talked about it a couple council meetings ago, but I have gotten a few phone calls about that fox.
He's in Maine, I think.
Well, does he or doesn't he?
I don't know.
Mother Nature takes care of it. So it's, yes, I spoke to the DNR, they're not interested in it, it's part of nature.
No, but I have, it's like starting to kind of show up over by Brothers, like where there's a
It's
daycare.
been there for
He's been in
months.
my yard.
Well, he's been in the golf course
He's
too.
been there,
and
yeah,
he's-
it's,
But I mean, there's a
He's in my yard
daycare over
everywhere.
there, so that's why I'm asking,
Yeah,
like, is
so-
the thing
until
rabid or?
they will not do anything until it does something to like attack people or pets. It has not, I
It's
would not
normal-
received anything.
Normal behavior at the current time.
I see it 3 out of 4 days in my neighborhood, and most of the time it's got a mouse or something similar hanging out of its mouth.
Hey, he's doing a good job.
So it will eventually, I doubt it'll make it through the winter anyway, but that's all part of what nature does to keep that population under control. We can't, citizens can't trap it, we can't shoot it. If it begins looking sick, I know that it's not the best looking thing in the world anyway, but if it starts acting sick, then law enforcement can do something. But I saw it today when I was coming to work, it was using this crosswalk at the school, so.
I guess my question was gonna be, have we contacted like a rehabber or anything to see if they wanna come get it and try to rehome it somewhere a little bit more fox friendly?
We have not, they will have you trap it, and then potentially, but same way, I'm sure these places don't want mange in their facilities, like somebody mentioned a vet, they do not want that in their
No, but a
facility.
rehabber might wanna try to,
Fox are also very difficult to track because they're very smart as far as where they're at. So that'll be a challenge. It's not gonna be like a raccoon where we can live trap generally from that standpoint. So we generally would recruit DNR to assist us if we needed to relocate. But those are, again, DNR will come assist us if there's behavior concerns or different things from that aspect. And we have seen, all of our officers see it, we monitor it, and it's just, again, it's mousing and doing
so
normal
you don't think
things.
there's any danger to anybody from that fox?
I mean, it's a city fox, it's used to people being around, it's not as skittish as a a lot of them, you know, if you go out the country, they're gonna be a little more skittish than that, but.
Ozzy's kid, mine, so I don't think.
They thought it was a cat at first when they saw it.
They
It
look
was
bigger.
so like,
Yeah.
no, like,
There's very little hair.
There's actually 3 of them.
oh, really?
Yeah, there's like,
One-
it's,
The other 2 actually look like a true fox.
yeah,
This one's pretty rough.
Yeah.
The run of the family.
he was in my backyard one morning. I opened up our
Too bad.
sliding glass
It's an easy fix.
blinds, and there he was out there. So,
Anything else?
No.
I just wanted to say, also congratulations on softball, baseball teams. And also want to say, thanks a lot to the city crew and everything. You know, we're coming up on Sauerkraut Days in our town. You still go into a lot of towns and they're still dealing with duration. So, in our town, it looks really good, I think. So. Anything else? Oh, Christine, you got anything? How was your conference?
It was very good. I think you guys were all going to attend that and go to it. So I learned a lot, and there will be some working on annual reports now. So
what did you learn?
that class was focused. The ones that I did was focused primarily on city clerk, the financial parts of it. So we went over the budget and the fiscal reports that will be coming up. So
What did you learn?
Well, I stayed back to assist Travis in case we had to do the boil order, because that was the day they put the valve in. So we talked about it, and I talked to Doug, and we thought it was best that I'm not here.
I took cheat sheets for him.
So
Well, good. I hope you guys have the opportunity to go to more of those.
Doug, you forgot Travis.
You started with him.
Sorry.
You had
I
the
didn't hear
first
you.
one.
Yeah, I was pretty quiet.
Sorry.
Sorry, next time.
He was the only one that
Quiet.
did congratulate Lisbon softball and baseball teams.
You all do it, so I figured they'll cover it. Not worried about it.
The other first words are always
It was
good.
fun when we lived next to each other.
All right, anybody got anything else?
Nope.
Meeting adjourned.